to remember to look there. Questions. This is all gold. This kind of feels like if Christmas was dark. It's like it's Christmas, but there's no lights on the tree is very lopsided. I don't think you can see from there, but there's a whole bit here that just doesn't match up. We work with what we have. Okay. I don't normally address the camera. It feels very weird to be like, hello, because no one's here and I'm just alone in my living room. Hi YouTube, hello, hi. This is the Q&A 96.6k followers Q&A, what I am doing to round off the year. Just gonna answer some questions and probably leave you asking more. Let's do it. Let's get into it. Today's video is sponsored by me. I wrote a book. I've been banging on about it, so I hope you're aware of that. But if you weren't, I wrote this book. It's called Life Lessons from Historical Women. It is 18 stories about women from history who are cool. They're more than cool. They're very brave, incredible women who I think need more people to know about. But I also think they're cool. That's basically why I put them in there. That's the real prerequisite to be in the book. I will say again, men can read it. I have still had so many messages, very sweet messages, and I really appreciate it, from men being like, oh yes, I'll buy it for the wife. It's like, just to let you know, you are also able to read this book. It is in man language. Men will be able to understand this book. Useful information. It is in bookshops, definitely in Britain, definitely in the US, I think in Australia and New Zealand. Basically, the best thing to do is go to your local independent bookshop and ask them to order it in, or you can also use the big Rainforest Corporation we do not speak of. That is apparently where reviews are important. I don't really know how it works, but my publishers have told me that Amazon is the place to put reviews, so there you go. No avoiding the capitalist hellscape. Another question people have, yes, there's an audio version, there's an audio book, it is on Audible, I think it's also on Spotify. Second question people ask, who reads it? I do. I read it. Not Craig. No one else. Me. I read it. So if you want to hear this for like 8 hours, that is open to you. If you don't, you can just read it. I think that's everything. Much of this is also Googleable if you need more info. But yeah. Okay, first question. John Augenstein 7754. Beautiful name. Any chance we will see Suzanne Primate soon? I'm assuming she is off in the Amazon exploring the wild heart for her next feature. Thank you for your question about Suzanne. She is one of my favourites. She will hopefully be back soon. The thing about Suzanne Primate is it's all on location, and as you can probably tell from the Suzanne videos in the past, my setup for on location is not very technologically advanced, so I also need someone else there to help me, which I don't normally need for my videos. So she really depends on, have I got an idea? Can I get someone else, rope someone else in to help me, and is it going to sound shit? Often it does. But I have bought one of those Wii Rode mics, so hopefully Suzanne will be better quality next time you see her. Yeah, I like Suzanne Primate. She really... The funny story behind her coming into being is me and my sister were waiting for a booking at Pizza Express. We had time to kill, and in Spitalfields in London, and my sister's doing a PhD all about the treatment of the women in the Jack the Ripper case in the media. So we're both kind of true crime nuts as well. So my plant just like did a thing by itself. It just kind of twitched. So we're both kind of into Jack the Ripper, not into Jack the Ripper. We're both interested in the case, and we were in Spitalfields, and we thought, let's kill some time and film one of those spoof documentaries about Jack the Ripper, because they are also very funny. I don't know if you've watched any of those Jack the Ripper documentaries, but they're all very over the top and sensationalist. And yeah, so that was just literally me and my sister on a whim, making stuff up as we went. You can definitely tell from the quality of the video, but the weird thing is you never know how things are going to turn out, because that was also the video that Taika Waititi retweeted, so there are no rules when it comes to content. Jason C1782. Are you real people? I think you might be robots. How long generally does it take you to make one of your videos through having the idea, writing it, filming it, and uploading it? That is a good question, Jason. I basically have ideas anytime, just be wandering around whenever people have ideas. I basically have ideas like will come into my head. Normally, like the title will come into my head first, because with internet content, I think the title is often part of the joke, you know, because it needs to explain, needs to give you what it is at the start. So I'll get a title and then I'll just take, like, not even an afternoon, like an hour. I mean, as you can tell from my stuff, it's very low production values. It's just me and a wall. I've got a lot of friends who do some really great stuff. Sean Burke, ABK, Sue's, a lot of green screen, a lot of costumes. I would love to be one of those people. I'm not. I get stressed by the amount of. I was stressed setting this up. I like to keep it simple. I like to think of it more like radio. You know, it's very stripped back. I'd love to be one of those people who does all that extra stuff, but I just get myself. I get a blank wall, and I basically just sort of improv my way through the idea, have a couple of lines I'll think up, and then I'll kind of improv around it, and then the sort of 2 minutes worth of a sketch will sort of be chiseled out of that. I guess it's like sculpture. And I always want to put subtitles. I just think it's just useful. I know a lot of platforms have subtitles, like captions as part of it, but I just think it's good to have them on the screen, just because a lot of the time people don't even turn their sound on their phone. They might be like in a public place or something. So and then often, you know, if I'm doing an accent or if I'm talking about something very random, you know, I want people to get all the niche specifics of the joke. So yeah, they kind of live in my head for a bit. But during lockdown, when I started kind of really producing a lot more stuff, like 2 videos a week, which I can't really keep up with now, it was just a way to keep my brain refreshed, basically, because I wasn't writing anything else. I didn't have any shows or live performances to do, so I needed sort of a turnaround. Yeah. Lorraine Thomas 241, assuming she's a cousin of the others. Did child Ellena aspire to be a comedian? Are you going to write more books? That is 2 questions. You are being greedy, Lorraine. Yes. I think when I first wanted to be an actor, and then when I was about 12 or 13, the concept of stand-up comedy was introduced to me. I don't think I sort of knew what it was before. I saw some stand-up on TV, and I sort of realised that much better suited what I wanted to do, which was write my own stuff. I think actors, you know, I love acting as well, and I'd like to do more, but I think actors have a lot less control over their lives and what they create. So yeah, stand-up is a sort of happy medium there for me, and it's not a very funny answer, is it? Sorry. I wasn't a class clown, but I was in my group of friends, I think, definitely trying to make people laugh. And I think one of my friends, shout out to Caitlin, said, "Oh, you could be a comedian." And I think at that time I was like, no way, that's the scariest thing I could think of, you know. But then the thing is, as an anxious child, everything scares you. So I thought, okay, well, this scares me as much as normal stuff like going to the shops, so I might as well give it a go. So in that way, anxiety can be a superpower. Am I going to write any more books? Yes, I would like to. It really depends, unfortunately, whether or not you guys buy enough of this one and give it good reviews. It's the power is in your hands. So I would love to write more books. I don't know what I would write. Fiction, non-fiction, just a bunch of stuff. I would quite like to write some fiction. I don't know about a novel. I don't know if I've got the stamina for a novel, but definitely watch this space when it comes to more books in the future. ... Evil Otto Jr. Productions. Is there anything you've worked on in the past that you felt went under the radar but you're very proud of and wish more people would see? I think it's more that there are videos I really like that I think you guys are not as into, which is fine, you know. But there's some very niche sketches that I'm like, I really just made for myself, and that is the fun thing about the internet, because you will meet people and they'll be like, "Oh, I really enjoyed this very obscure thing that you did," and you'll be like, "Oh, I'm not the only one who likes this weird thing. That's nice." So yeah, there's definitely stuff on my YouTube you can go and look at that has less views that I personally think is funnier than most people watching. But that's comedy, guys. It's subjective. Objective, subjective. Trime the Pimp, I think I'm saying this right. Have you ever met Ruth Goodman? I don't quite know how the collab would work, but if it happened, it would involve 2 entertaining women with a knack for bringing history to life. Thank you. I've never met Ruth Goodman. I met Lucy Worsley once. That was cool. I like Ruth Goodman. If you don't know Ruth Goodman, she does a lot of living history, which is my favourite type of history. If the BBC or anything else ever let me, I would 100% do one of those shows where I got to live in the past. Not because I think the past is great, just because I love immersive stuff like that. I've watched all of the different variations of those shows. My favourite one was from the mid 2000s. It's called Supersizers, and it was British. It was Giles Corran, the journalist, and Sue Perkins, the comedian, who I'm a big fan of. And they would do the diet of different periods of history for a week and dress like that and do the hobbies and things. And then a nutritionist would, look at the diet and see how healthy they were at the end of the week, which I don't think really, probably, I'm not a food scientist, but I don't know how much difference a week would really make. But it was really interesting to see them, and just fun. They get really drunk because people drank a lot in history, and I would do one of those shows in a heartbeat. So yeah, Ruth's shows, though, if you watch Ruth's shows, they're much more hard work. Like in terms of what she'll like live on a Tudor farm for a year. I think that's on YouTube somewhere. It's just her and these two other historians. They live on, or three other historians. They live on a farm in the middle of rural Wales as Tudors, and it looks like real tough work. There's no getting drunk. She seems very cool. I would like to meet her. And yeah, if the BBC ever wanted a comedian to ask around in a big dress for, history for the purposes of science, then I would do that. Eric Viking 2019. Where are you from? Wales, Scotland, Ireland? How did that impact your humour? I like that Eric has guessed every country in Britain and Ireland apart from the one that my accent is actually from. I'm from Scotland. I do sound English. I think it depends how well you know the Scottish accent. I think sometimes I can sound a bit Edinburgh. The Edinburgh accent's quite light anyway. The joke people make about people from Edinburgh, if you don't know Britain or if you don't know Scotland, is that people from Edinburgh are all English anyway. They're all Tories and they're all posh. And so I'm not a great ambassador because I do sound a bit like how people expect the stereotype to sound. But most people from Edinburgh don't sound like me. Most people do actually sound Scottish. I just sound like this because various boring things to do with where my parents were brought up, but I have this sort of mixed weird history. My parents are from England, but then their families are all from Scotland, so I don't really have a connection with England, but I sound like I do. It's very confusing. It's very boring. People always want to know, and then they never feel like they are happy with the answer. But I'm as confused as you are, if that helps. Scottish humour, I think, is, I wouldn't say unique, but definitely dark, deadpan. If you look at things like the Reverend I Am Jolly, things like Rabsy Nesbitt, Still Game, they're fun and silly, but they can be quite dark as well, quite absurdist, things like Limmy. I think the Scottish sense of humour is very dark in a way that people are surprised by. They don't expect us to be, and I think it's to do with our history. I think it's to do with other cultures that have influenced us, and I think historically, growing up in Scotland was quite hard, and I think that's sort of seeped in to a lot of the humour we have, that sort of coping with bad times. I loved the sillier stuff as well, like Limmy's show, Chewing the Fat. What's the Alan Cumming one? The High Life. I love that. That's good. Sometimes I feel like Scottish comedy is sort of boxed as this specific thing, but I think the internet has proved that it's comedy is universal in many ways, and that they wouldn't show Limmy on like BBC England, like BBC UK for years, because I think they thought they wouldn't get it. But then it became really popular online because it's very easy to get. It's very funny. Pastor 2010 asks, how many takes did it take to do the audiobook? Did you ever accidentally slip into Craig's voice? I don't know how many takes it took, but it took 3 full sort of work days, 9 to 5, to record about, I think, 8 hours roughly. No, a lot of people asked if Craig would be reading it, and I know people love Craig. No, he wouldn't. I have done Craig live for longer stretches, like sort of half-hour bits in shows. And what I found is that level of dourness is very draining. So even, first of all, I think it would be pretty weird if Craig was reading my book about female history. But secondly, I actually think you would probably fall asleep listening to it, and you wouldn't pay attention because it's his sonorous voice is um, it's not energetic enough for that. So you might think you want 8 hours of Craig, but I maintain that you don't. Person 1865. What happened in 1865? I feel like this is something I should know. It's something very obvious. The American Civil War? I'm going to look that up. It finished in 1865. Do you have a history or literature degree? I have a joint degree in English and Scottish literature from Glasgow. The thing I did a module of history. I did history at school and I loved history, and I did really well at school at history, and I wanted to do it kind of at uni, but I actually found it quite stressful, and I think a lot of dates. There's a lot of it was just the bits of history I enjoy, which is like talking about how life was impacted and changed in society and comparing it to today, I think weren't really like the focus. It was a lot of dates and a lot of things to remember, a lot of battles and just stuff that I just thought I found quite overwhelming. What I like about literature is that in a way you're kind of doing a history degree for whatever country's literature or genre of literature you're studying. So, you know, you have to learn the context for all these books in order to understand them. And I think doing Scottish and English literature meant I was able to like learn about Scottish history, English history, but also, you know, literature is a nice gateway to history. It's a bit easier for people like me who aren't really that focused on the academic side of it. Yeah, also to clarify, Scottish literature is literature in English and in Scots, not Gaelic. I'm not clever enough to learn Gaelic. It is hard, and I am bad at languages. 2 more questions. Andrew Weirney, what are some of your most surprising or off-topic hobbies, interests, YouTube subs, etc. that we would never know about from watching your videos? That's a good question. I think none of my interests would surprise anyone. I like stuff that is very in line. I guess the only thing that's not very me is when I was a teenager I did Muay Thai boxing for about 6 years, and I really loved that, and it was really fun, and I haven't done it since because it's just hard to make it work in my, because you need a partner to spar with, so it was hard to make it work. But yeah, Muay Thai is very fun. It's a very cool culture as well. It's very fascinating, the Thai boxing culture, and they have this whole system when it comes to the boxing. They have these schools. It was a sort of something they used in warfare. If I ever got to go to Thailand, I would love to go and look at a school. I'll tell you some of my YouTube subs, so you can decide whether or not you are surprised by them. I'll tell you some of my YouTube subs that I think you might like if you like my stuff. You might already follow these people. Ruth Goodman, he is previously of Vine fame, very funny guy. He just does little funny analysis videos. It's not really, he doesn't really have a theme. He's just a very funny man. Be Kind Rewind is Hollywood history. Really goes into especially women's history in Hollywood, and you know, the old studio system, which I think is a mad, insane, fascinating thing. And sort of looks at why certain films are more popular or how they got made. Or she has a great series on the so-called feud with Betty Davis and Joan Crawford. So yeah, if you like old Hollywood, old films, that's a good one. This is probably more for the British people, but if you love reminiscing about mad British TV from the mid-2000s, Luxaria does. She just has a watch channel where she reacts to lots of old, random, weird reality TV we used to have, which was wild. What Not to Wear, Snog, Marry, Avoid, all that kind of really toxic mid-2000s stuff. I really love it. I love rewatching it and sort of saying, I can't believe we let this get made. So she's very funny. Jago Hazard's channel is purely about, or mostly about, the London Underground, and it is, if you're a train nerd or a transport nerd, or if like me you think the history of transport is very interesting, then you will really like his videos. They're pretty short as well, so they're nice and sweet and succinct. He just explains all this random stuff about the Underground that you might not know, or you've wondered, especially if you've visited London or lived there. And he also looks at some other bits of transport, but it's mostly the tube, and I love it. I think it's such a mad history. It's the oldest network in the world, so it's got a lot of sort of stories behind its creation and secret stations that aren't used anymore, and myths and random weird things that happen. And just also like he explains why a lot of the underground doesn't really make sense. He's like, this is why it doesn't make sense. Tasting History with Max Miller, again, makes complete sense for me. It is Max Miller, who is a charming American man who just does, he recreates historical recipes basically, and he goes into loads of detail. He does lots of sort of behind the scenes work and context and things, and it's just really fun. And he's just a lovely man. He just seems like a lovely man, and it's a very nice way to spend an afternoon watching him sort of recreate and taste some of the weird stuff people used to eat in the past. Princess Weeks, she does a lot of stuff about pop culture, feminism, sort of nerd culture. She just kind of looks into certain trends and fashions and the history of certain cultural things we do as a society, and asks why. That's a lot of fun. Also Mooncat, if you like that, she does really great deep dives into the history of certain movements, or um, you know, things that have become big on YouTube and how they got there. Final question, Lex Coaster wants to know, who are your favourite comedians? That is a very good question. I have a wide variety of favourite comedians. When I was younger, it was a lot of classic British comedy like The Goons and Monty Python. And I feel like growing up as well in the mid-2000s, it was kind of, maybe I'm being nostalgic, I feel like it was a golden age of specifically surrealist comedy on TV, Spaced, Green Wing. Everyone sort of involved in that kind of Simon Pegg kind of universe, Edgar Wright universe. I loved all that stuff. Black Books was very influential on me. At the time, I loved Dylan Moran, Bill Bailey. I know British people say Dylan Moran's name wrong, and I can never remember. Moran? Sorry, Ireland. So yeah, and then I watched Bill Bailey and Dylan Moran's stand up after that, and I got really into that. Eddie Izzard as well. I got recommended Maria Bamford, who's one of my absolute favourites. She's American. She's very funny. She does lots of characters and voices. If you're into that kind of thing and you haven't heard of her, French and Saunders. I think silly people, really. There's a lot of silly stuff in there. A lot of, I don't want to say whimsy because people hate them, but it is quite whimsical. That's my taste. So I do try and watch as much stand up as I can. But I do kind of I enjoy it less. The thing is, when you follow your dreams, you can't enjoy your dreams anymore. Like I don't watch comedy for fun anymore, really, unless it's something I'm completely not connected with, because then I just start to think, oh, why didn't I write that? You know, why didn't I have that idea? So I don't watch as much as I used to, but I still try and get a lot of comedy in my diet. All the stand-ups that I've worked with over the years, who are big on YouTube as well: Suze Kempner, Alistair Beckett King, Sean and Michael, Poppy Hillstead. She's a very funny friend of mine who also does amazing art. I like a lot of quite dark comedy, surreal comedy, silly comedy. I think you can sort of tell from my stuff that that's my kind of vibe. I'm sure there's loads of other people I've forgotten. I always forget people. Tom Lehrer. I like a lot of people like Flight of the Conchords, that kind of musical comedy. And then British stand-ups I sort of was introduced to quite early, like Daniel Kitson, James Acaster. Quite wordy people, woke people, unfortunately, guys. You heard it here first. I am woke. I know it comes as a huge surprise, but I am one of the wokes. Sorry about that. I've been talking for 40 minutes. God knows what this will be edited down to. Also, I probably didn't look at the camera very much because I keep forgetting that the lens is here. Thank you. I hope that was interesting, entertaining. I don't know. It wasn't very funny. I hope you enjoyed the festive period. I will see you in January. Book is out once again, reminding you, and Craig says hi.